is Caitlin Clark being frustrated. Caitlin Clark wanted to come back. Word on the street, front office, even Stephanie White said it down in Phoenix. She stated, we are worried about the long-term health of Caitlin Clark. That has been the topic. That has been all they worried about.
Caitlin Clark, the rising icon who transformed the Indiana Fever from underdogs into playoff contenders, now finds herself unexpectedly sidelined. Not because of opponents, not because of injuries, but due to decisions from within her own organization. The very leadership that has benefited most from her impact seems to be pushing her out of the spotlight. Yet Clark isn't one to fade quietly. She's determined, vocal, and ready to prove that no one can keep her off the court.
Is Caitlin Clark not playing because she's hurt? She can't come back? Or is she not playing because the organization chose to bench her for the rest of the year? Because Stephanie White has come out and made some comments, and I don't like what I'm hearing.
The Indiana Fever are back in the playoffs for a second consecutive season, riding a franchise-best 23 victories and finally breaking their long drought of winning records. But when it comes time for the biggest games of the year, the very star who sparked this turnaround won't be on the floor. She's the athlete who turned quiet arenas into sellouts, who became the main draw for fans and revenue alike. Yet now, Caitlin Clark has been sidelined for the rest of the season, including the postseason, and she's not hiding her frustration.
Indiana Fever are having a tough time covering the tracks to the dirty games they played and screwing over the fans and sabotaging Caitlin Clark this season. Everybody is on to the dirty games that the WNBA and the Indiana Fever have played this season, manipulating the people and using Caitlin Clark for money and using her fans. Stephanie White has been exposed. Lexi Hall confirms that Caitlin Clark was ready to play and that the team made the decision to keep her out while she was ready to play.
The official explanation? Protecting her long-term health. Management is framing it as if they're preserving a priceless asset, keeping Caitlin Clark on ice for tomorrow rather than letting her shine today. They're congratulating themselves for being careful, expecting fans to accept it as smart strategy. But to many, it looks less like caution and more like sidelining the very player who single-handedly pulled this franchise back into the spotlight.
Steph, what stood out to you about Caitlin and kind of the ray of emotion she probably felt as you came to this decision?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating, number one, just all the injuries that she's had. Obviously, I wouldn't speak for her, but and the amount of work that she's put in to position herself to be able to play and then to, have to ultimately make this decision. There's disappointment. There's the obvious frustration that's come with not being healthy really for an entire season. But ultimately, I think the big picture is the most important thing, and those are conversations that we've continued to have. And the message has continued to be that it's not her long-term health and wellness and her being 100% when she's ready to go is the most important thing.
Caitlin Clark isn't the type of athlete you quietly park on the injured list. She's the reason the Indiana Fever are even in the conversation again. For 7 straight years, this team was stuck at the bottom, irrelevant in the playoff picture. Then Clark arrived, and everything changed. Overnight, the Fever went from overlooked to must-watch, filling arenas and dominating highlight reels. She lifted the franchise from obscurity to the center stage.
Caitlin Clark strapped on her hard hat and steel-toed boots and revolutionized the game of pretend basketball. She turned this previously unmonetizable turd into a league that's getting dangerously close to losing their charity status. Because of Caitlin Clark, the WNBA is on the verge of generating pesos and profit for the first time ever. She brought mainstream attention to a league that never had a chance of breaking into the mainstream. She brought a new fan base. For the first time, people were actually willing to spend money to watch the WNBA.
Don't forget to hit subscribe if you're enjoying this. July 15th, 2025, final minute against the Connecticut Sun. Clark delivers a routine pass, then suddenly clutches her right groin. Cameras catch her frustration, head buried in her hands, a towel draped across her shoulders, the weight of the moment written all over her face. From that play forward, the front office took control of her season. Not Clark, not even the medical staff who had already cleared her for non-contact practice. Meanwhile, the Fever's games turned into must-see TV. Just look at her debut matchup with Angel Reese's squad. 2.7 million viewers tuned in, making it ESPN's most-watched game of the year. Clark dropped a triple-double that night and lit up social media, while Reese, despite a solid 12-point outing, was largely overshadowed. Let's be honest, Caitlin Clark is the attraction, the headline, and the heartbeat of the show.
Which I'm all for the long-term health, but you got to be a player-first organization. And if that said player is ready to return, she's cleared by the doctors. She's cleared by the damn doctors to play. Been cleared by the doctors to play. Let her fucking play. I am sorry. Y'all sitting up here, donkey and a damn carried everybody, wanting to get all the money you can off one day. It's one day at a time, one day at a time. All this BS y'all doing is ridiculous. And Indiana, you're looking spooky. You're looking spooky. I am sorry. I am sick of this.
For nearly 2 months, the team strung fans along with vague updates, day to day, taking it slow, always hinting that a return was right around the corner. Meanwhile, Clark was grinding daily in the gym, locked in on one mission: stepping back onto the court. She joined non-contact drills, took part in shit-arounds, and looked ready to lead her team when it mattered most. But here's where things turned sour. The same front office that has ridden her star power from the very beginning pulled the plug. Not because she wasn't capable of playing. Not because the medical staff refused to clear her. They made the call themselves, shelving her for the season under the guise of long-term health. In reality, it looked a lot more like protecting their investment, even if it meant throwing away the team's best shot at a championship.
Instead of allowing Caitlin Clark to elevate the league, WNBA players were overtaken with powerful feelings of jealousy. They resented her. They wanted her to go away. And this season, and especially over the last couple of months, WNBA players have gotten exactly what they wanted. After 2 years of claiming that the WNBA is about more than one player, unknown dump divers were finally given the opportunity to prove it. As expected, the end result has been huge, embarrassing failure.
Clark's own words should have rattled every executive in that organization. I had hoped to bring better news, but I will not be returning this season. I poured countless hours into training with the sole goal of stepping back on the floor. Disappointed doesn't even begin to cover how I feel. Let that settle in. When Caitlin Clark, someone who thrives under pressure, admits that even her vocabulary can't capture the frustration, it speaks volumes. This is the player who has carried the weight of a league, who turned the Fever from perennial cellar dwellers into playoff hopefuls. She's the reason seats filled, ratings soared, and Indiana basketball became relevant again. And yet, in the most pivotal moment of the franchise's modern history, their answer was to keep her on the sidelines.
The Fever fan base has lost so much trust in the Fever organization this year, and not only from the injury reporting, but it stems from the injury reporting. There's been some very, very weird injury reports this season, and the math isn't mathing. And I've also been one to defend the organization to a certain extent because you don't always want to give away too much information. And I've placed a lot of the blame on the reporters. I'm like, how are the reporters not able to get to the bottom of this and at least give us something?
Official line from management: no timetable. Our priority is Caitlin's long-term health. On the surface, it sounds noble, even protective, but to a competitor like Clark, it's practically a slap in the face. This is an athlete who's battled through challenges her entire career, who never missed a game at Iowa, who never sat out once during her rookie WNBA season. And now, suddenly, the front office claims to know her body better than she does. Here's the part they'd rather not highlight. Clark was already active in team workouts. She was running sets in 5-on-0 drills. Independent medical voices even criticized the team's day-to-day storyline, suggesting her absence pointed to a minor, lingering issue, not a devastating injury. But instead of letting her finish the fight, leadership went with the harshest decision possible, pulling their franchise player just as she was on the verge of a comeback.
This is a sabotage job, you guys. Flat out, point blank, period. You guys have not been open and up front. You guys have talked about long-term health and wellness. You guys have not been up front with the injuries, with the injury report, with the timetable. You guys left this girl listed as day-to-day and questionable for months at a time. That is not being upfront with the people. It's not. You guys hid an injury, an ankle injury, for weeks. You guys hid an ankle injury for weeks. Stop it.
So how did Clark respond to what many see as a betrayal? With blunt honesty. This stretch has been incredibly frustrating. But even in the tough moments, they're still good. The fans showing up for me and for the Fever have been a huge source of joy and perspective. I'm proud of how this team has grown stronger through adversity. Now it's about finishing the season and securing our spot. Look closely at her words. She went out of her way to thank the fans. She uplifted her teammates. But there was no acknowledgement, none, for the front office that made the call to sideline her. That silence says everything. Clark knows exactly where the responsibility lies for keeping her out of the most important games of the year.
When she hurt her ankle in August, that was really the dagger that ended the season. But also, they had no idea when that groin injury would have healed. See, this is the part that's frustrating with these guys, is that why can't they just say mid-grade 2 or 3? Just tell the truth. Was it a 1? Was it a 2? Was it a 3? Was it a 1 but she re-aggravated in practice or something? Did they over-push her or something?
And here's where the frustration hits a peak. The Fever desperately need Clark. They locked in the 7th seed after a 94-65 rout of the Mystics, but now head into the playoffs without their leader, their star attraction, their identity. Fans are already doubting whether this team can make a serious run without her, and who can blame them? The front office keeps stressing long-term protection. But what about protecting the franchise's momentum? What about the fans who paid playoff prices expecting to see Caitlin Clark on the floor? What about the television audiences who tune in specifically for her? Instead, the organization gambled away immediate championship potential for some vague promise of tomorrow. The decision doesn't just feel cautious, it feels arrogant. The same leadership that rode Clark's rise from obscurity to nationwide relevance suddenly believes they can thrive without her. They're about to find out just how costly it is to sideline greatness in the name of corporate caution.
He stated, I miss it too. Y'all want to know why Caitlin Clark said this? Because Caitlin Clark never wanted to sit out. Caitlin Clark wanted to come back. Caitlin Clark wanted to come back, and they're treating her like she's property. That's what the Indiana Fever is doing. She's their property now. And since Caitlin Clark can have the say on whether she can play basketball or not, which is completely damn me ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. If she could play and she want to play, let her fucking play.
Clark's statement went on. I want to thank everyone who had my back through all the uncertainty. Notice the phrasing. She didn't thank the entire organization. She didn't mention the decision makers. She singled out the people who truly supported her. That omission feels like a direct message to those who didn't. And this goes beyond one player missing playoff games. It's about respect. It's about acknowledging what Clark has done for both this franchise and the WNBA as a whole. She's been the league's biggest draw, the engine behind record attendance and revenue. And yet, her reward is being sidelined by executives who've never stepped on the court themselves. What stings even more is that Clark was prepared. She was putting in the hours, attacking rehab, and checking every box to be ready for postseason play. But instead of trusting the fiercest competitor in the league, the front office chose to make the call for her, opting for fear and preservation over chasing a championship.
Confidence, so by making the playoffs, And by shutting down Caitlin Clark, it means that they fully believe that Caitlin Clark is not going to be an asset to this team, and they would rather go into the playoffs with Bree Hall on the roster than with a Caitlin Clark. And I don't know if it's a situation of, like, they would rather do that than go in with Caitlin Clark, and they would rather go in not have the headache of Caitlin Clark. It straight up seems that this front office, whether it be the coach down, they do not want the headache of constant Caitlin Clark questions in the playoffs.
Now the organization has to face the fans and explain why the most electrifying player in women's basketball is relegated to the sidelines during the postseason. They'll have to answer for the inevitable dip in ticket sales, the drop in viewership, and the fact that the Fever's best chance at a title just evaporated. All because they didn't trust their star to understand her own body and decide for herself. Clark's closing words were telling. Now it's time to close out the season and claim our spot. Not a spot in a deep playoff run. Not a push for the championship. Just a spot. That's the voice of someone who knows she's being restrained from chasing something greater. The truth is, the Fever's front office may have just committed the gravest error in the team's history. They sidelined the very player who resurrected their brand, who put them back in the spotlight, and who gave fans a reason to believe again. Instead of letting her finish the job, they defaulted to caution, choosing liability over legacy, spreadsheets over trophies.
I missed this so bad. Caitlin Clark's message on her Instagram story. I missed this so bad. It's just a tough thing to process, I'm sure, for her as well. And then the way it went down, it wasn't like a sudden thing, which in the long run is better, right? I mean, it's better that it wasn't an ACL or an Achilles or one of these injuries that's going to sideline her for a prolonged period of time. But the hope of her return, and then the ankle injury messing everything up in the process of that and making it so she couldn't return, it has to be burning her up inside because
Caitlin Clark deserved more. The fans deserved more. And when the Fever inevitably stumble in the postseason without their superstar, the blame won't fall on bad breaks or misfortune. It'll fall squarely on the front office that chose caution over courage. Disappointed doesn't even begin to cover it, and honestly, it shouldn't. So, as the Fever march into the playoffs without the player who put them back on the map, we're left mourning what could have been. The Suits thought they were protecting their asset, but in reality, they sabotaged themselves. Clark will return next season with fire in her eyes, and if she carried a chip on her shoulder before, now she'll be dragging the entire casino behind her. Meanwhile, the franchise will learn the hard way. You don't sideline the very star who makes you relevant. Because without her, you're left with empty numbers, hollow hype, and no spectacle. And no one buys tickets for empty promises. If the Fever's decision makers can't see that, then they'd better get comfortable with the silence that follows.